Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraft woman Brooke Buckley. Today, we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Dam Busters raid. On the 16th and 17th of May 1943, Royal Air Force No. 617 Squadron embarked on what would later become known as the Dam Busters Raid. Codenamed Operation Chastise, the raid targeted several dams in Nazi Germany's heavily industrialised Ruhr Valley. While the raid is today remembered for the success of the bouncing bomb against its primary target, the Mona Dam, in order to avoid radar detection and anti-aircraft guns, those involved flew at altitudes of around 30 metres. This high-risk tactic came at a price. Of the 19 Lancaster bombers involved in the raid, 8 crashed or were shot down and 53 men died. Among those that died were 2 Australians, Flight Lieutenant Norm Barlow, DFC, and Flying Officer Charles Williams, DFC, who were assigned to the second wave, detailed to attack the Sorpe Dam. Ultimately, 2 dams were breached, causing major flooding in the Ruhr Valley, destroying or damaging power stations, factories and mines. German production of coal, steel and armaments was severely disrupted for several months. Today, we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Return and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, Group Captain Matt Cottrell, retired, representing the Air Force Association, and the delegation representing RSL Queensland. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Lieutenant Leslie Gordon Knight. Leslie Knight was born in the Melbourne suburb of Camberwell on the 7th of March 1921, the older of two sons born to Harold and Nellie Knight. Known as Les, he was planning to study and work as an accountant at Davey Balding & Co in Melbourne, but he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 3rd of February 1941 at the age of 19. After initial training, he trained as a pilot, awarded the flying badge on the 21st of August 1941. In November, he embarked at Newcastle, bound for active overseas service. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who throughout the course of the war joined Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. Knight arrived in the United Kingdom in February 1942, a year after joining the Royal Australian Air Force, and was attached to the Royal Air Force. In May, he joined No. 14 Operational Training Unit and trained with a night bomber crew as part of Bomber Command. In September, Knight joined 50 Squadron, RAF, flying Avro Lancaster 4-engined strategic bombers from RAF Skellingthorpe. Quiet and unamusing and known for not drinking or smoking, Knight earned a reputation as an exceptional pilot, despite the fact he couldn't ride a bicycle or drive a car. He and his crew had flown some 26 operations by March 1943, when they were offered the chance to transfer to a new squadron. Initially known as Squadron X, 617 Squadron was formed under great secrecy at RAF Scampton to undertake Operation Chastise, a mission that involved attacking the Mern, Eder and Sorpe dams, which provided water and power to Germany's Ruhr industry region. The squadrons developed tactics to deploy Barnes-Wallis's bouncing bomb and undertook training over the dams of the upper Derwent Valley in Derbyshire. From 9:28 p.m. on 16th May, 133 aircrew in 19 Lancasters took off in 3 waves to bomb the dams. Les Knight was flying N for Nuts, the 9th and final aircraft of the first wave, tasked with attacking the Mern and Eder dams. 5 mines had been used at the Mern Dam before it was breached, leaving 3 bombs for the Eder. Other aircraft had dropped their mines but failed to break the dam. Les Knight's weapon presented the last chance for success. A dummy run was dangerous enough for rear gunner Harry O'Brien to say that he never thought they would get over the mountain on the other side of the dam. With a bright moon on the starboard beam, Knight brought his aircraft into position and attacked the mine. Was released, bouncing 3 times before hitting the dam wall. Knight climbed steeply, and as the aircraft reached a safe height, saw an explosion that caused a large breach about 10 metres below the top of the dam, leaving its top intact. Crew member Bob Callow, who had his head in the Astrodome looking backwards, recalled that it looked as if some huge fist had been jabbed at the wall. A large amount road black hole appeared and water gushed as from a large hose. As Knight headed for home via the Mern Dam, his crew noted how much the water level had already dropped. It was later estimated that some 115 million cubic metres of water gushed through the shattered dam from the Mern Reservoir, while the Ida unleashed around 170 million cubic metres of water. The flooding halted steel production and coal mining for the remainder of the year and prevented barges and trains in the valley from supplying the war effort. Of the 1,300 people who died as a result of the floods, nearly 500 Ukrainian women and children held in the padlocked compounds of German labour camp. In London, Knight received the Distinguished Service Order for the raid, whilst his navigator Harold Hobday and bomber-aimer Edward Johnson received the Distinguished Flying Cross. While his crew celebrated the awards at a ribald gathering at the Hungarian restaurant, Knight skipped the party. The crew later went back to training. The next mission was a raid on the Dorman-Eames Canal in September. It was a poor night for flying, with heavy fog blanketing the heavily guarded canal. 4 of the 8 crews who took part in the raid had already been shot down when Knight, flying low amidst the fog, hit some trees and badly damaged his port engines. With his tailplane and starboard engine also damaged, Knight managed to pull up his aircraft before calling fellow Australian Mick Martin, who had assumed command of the mission, and requested permission to jettison his bomb. Now relieved of its weight, his aircraft slowly started to climb. Regardless, Knight could not stop the Lancaster turning to port, and it was obvious it would never make it back to base. He ordered his crew to bail out and held his plane steady as they did. Knight changed course to avoid crashing into the built-up area of the village of Denham, and almost succeeded in making a forced landing in a field, until the aircraft hit a bank running across the field and exploded. All 7 of the rest of the crew landed safely. 5 evaded capture, 2 became prisoners of war. The next morning, Dutch police and German military personnel cordoned off the area, and Knight's body was removed from the wreckage and taken by horse-drawn hearse to the old cemetery in Denham. His grave was initially marked with a simple wooden cross, which was replaced after the war with a Commonwealth War Graves Commission gravestone. Today, there is a memorial at the site of the crash. Posthumously mentioned in dispatches, Les Knight was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Lieutenant Leslie Gordon Knight, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.